Well, hello everyone. Good morning. Morning if you're live streaming with us right now, somewhere where it's morning. If you're somewhere else, good whatever it is. And if you're watching this later on, take your pick. Hey, great to have you around. I'm going to do the same thing I do every time. And Daniela already saw it coming. Oh my gosh. Okay, and Nicole did as well. Fantastic. So, let me pull this. Well, I'll make sure I get that when I get there. Thank you. You already know the whole rigmarole. Can you see and hear me? Because, yeah, it's not always, just a quick story. So I know you can see and hear me. I know you can see and hear me. And one time I said, I'm always going to check because you never know. And I said, it's going to be the one time that I don't check that you can't see and hear me. Well, one day I thought, I don't need to check. I know they can see and hear me. And I thought, yeah, this will be the one day it doesn't. And lo and behold, they couldn't. It all fell apart. It was like, okay, all right, learned my lesson. Hey, Rain, great to have you with us too. Great. Glad that everything's coming through great so we can jump into things. Let me explode that. Let me get my highlighter ready and we'll go ahead and come over here and get us set there. And because that you all jumped right in and said, yes, we can see and hear you, we're good, we could jump right into the good stuff. All right, so here's the deal. Protectionism part 2. Now, it's going to be another short lecture like we did on Tuesday. Normally I do these in one lecture, it makes sense, but I wanted to kind of divide them up so we could explore them just a little. You remember protectionism. I mean, it's not really hard to remember the idea. You should add one more for me. You know what, Shalise? I will. Totally. Okay. So here's the thing. Protectionism. You remember it. Tell me. And Alma, great. Great to have you. All right, tariffs, and Ash is with us. Ash is not a trade barrier, by the way. I said tariffs and Ash, but that's because Ash popped up. Ash is not a trade barrier yet, but when he goes off and starts his own country and tries to take over the civilized world as we know it, he may, in fact, at that point choose to implement some trade barriers. But until then, we've got tariffs, we got subsidies, and we have what, quotas, right? And then we have requirements that certain things are, made in the U.S. if we're going to buy them here. Quick reminder, tariffs, they're a tax. If you're going to sell it here, you're going to pay a tax. And who's going to pay that tax? Well, the buyers, the consumers. And then we had subsidies, which is I really want to help this company along. So I'm actually going to, right now they're not that efficient. And so they cannot be competitive in the marketplace because their processes, their production and so forth can't be competitive with their competitors. So I'm going to kind of give them a little boost by giving them some subsidies, some extra money so they can lower their prices and as a result be competitive in the marketplace. That's a trade barrier because it messes with free trade. Then we had quotas. All right, you can go ahead and sell here, but we're setting a cap at 10,000 units. Once you reach 10,000 units, you're not allowed to sell anymore over here. There's your quota. And then we had, component requirements, which is, all right, United States government, largest buyer in the country. It is the country after all. Well, yeah, but it has to be at least 51% made in America. Well, that's a trade barrier to folks outside, right? And then Alma ran across with this masks we always brought from China for years for allergies. Favor is no longer available. I emailed them and they no longer send to the US. Oh, hey, okay. Whether you see it or not, you just got a real world example there. Awesome comment. Yeah, And in fact, it's weird because it was really weird. So for a long time, we were getting our masks from China. But then because the virus started there, as though that means anything, because once it's a pandemic, it's everywhere. Nevertheless, we said, well, we're not going to buy masks from China. And then, of course, we run out of masks. And then we're saying we want to buy more masks from China. But China have said, well, I'm sorry, but you didn't set any orders. So we're selling to other countries. And we're like, oh, we want it. It's a mess, right? So great example. Okay, so you remember all that, right? Heck, we haven't even gotten off the title slide yet. And we're at comments and contributors and examples. Oh, you're on fire today. Okay. So protectionism is bad. It's bad. Okay. All right. I haven't watched South Park in like a trillion years, and it's not like I watched it all the time. But there are some times that when I say something, I can't help but to hear Professor Teacher Elba or whatever his name was, or Cartman. But in the words of whoever that professor was, that teacher, Mr. Mackey, that's it. Protectionism is bad. Trade barriers are bad, okay? Because they do not allow us to take advantage of comparative advantage. Remember, comparative advantage is really the voodoo that makes world global trade and global business so effective. Since everybody on the planet is doing what they do most efficiently, least expensively, and with the highest amount of quality, and we benefit from this whole world, producing in such a way, that means all the products and services that we can get our hands on are at optimum quality, optimum price, optimum, efficiency, and so forth. But once you start to put up barriers and so forth, you start to mess with the system, okay? Then why do we do it? Why do we put up trade barriers? Well, there are, in fact, some actually pretty rational reasons why we want to engage in protectionism from now and again. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Now, mind you, in all of these examples, there's cases where you can do it well and cases where you can do it poorly. We're going to talk about cases where you can do it well, but trust me, countries do it all the flippin' time very poorly. We'll come up with some examples there too, but we're going to try to give these tactics the benefit of the doubt and say, yeah, I can actually see a reason why you would do it. Okay, so with that, let's start with infant industry. And I think it was Daniela last time, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, who actually did the reading and already jumped ahead and talked about infant industry. Let's talk about what she was bringing up. So here's the idea. In a case of infant industry, we might, oh my gosh, my dog just ran in. We might want to give a certain industry a little bit of a boost, okay? So let's say that we are putting together a 5G capability here in the United States. Well, China really knows 5G, and we're really trying to give 5G some help. And right now, we're not very competitive. So what we're going to do, says the U.S. government, is we're going to give you a smidge of a subsidy. So now your 5G services are less expensive, and furthermore, you can, you don't have to invest as much of your money in research and so on. And we might even put up a tariff against other equipment coming into the country that would compete with your equipment. So between this mix of subsidies and tariffs, subsidies for our own industry and tariffs against others, we can kind of give you a little bit of a boost. Now, here's the thing. This should be done very, very strategically. Now, what do I mean by done strategically? Well, you don't just put it together for any old industry. It's not like every time an industry starts, we're going to go ahead and practice infant industry. We're only going to do it, if you do it right, for industries that we sit back and go, you know what? We could actually be a world-class competitor in this arena. And furthermore, we could convert this into a competitive advantage, a comparative advantage. So countries that say, we could be competitive here, we could be world class, and we could establish a comparative advantage, for them to practice infant industry, not a bad idea. I'll give you an example of a country, or actually countries, that did this. Airbus. You're familiar with Airbus, the airplanes, massive jumbo jets out of Europe. For me and my age, Airbus is relatively new because I was around before Airbus. You guys, you've all grown up with Airbus. But here's the thing. Airbus said, you know what? Unless the only airplane jumbo jet we could possibly buy is a Boeing. US Boeing. Boeing was the only manufacturer of really good, solid, excellent jumbo jets. Now, Russia, then the Soviet Union, they made jumbo jets as well, but no dig against the Russians because they have some awesome, awesome, awesome tech. But their jumbo jets were not really competitive with Boeing's. And so some of the smaller countries, less rich, right, countries might go to these Russian aircraft, but mostly Boeing was the only game in town. And Europe said, that ain't cool. And you know what? We're pretty smart and we have some really awesome tech. If we put together this group here in Europe and started our own, airline manufacturing company, we could not only be a world-class competitor, but we could make it a comparative advantage. And so they all got together in Germany, France, Great Britain, I forget all the countries, but a whole bunch of countries got together and they subsidized the creation of Airbus and all of its R&D and so on. Now, America cried foul because they said, listen, this kind of subsidy, that's anti-competitive. Furthermore, you're a whole bunch of countries coming together. We were just one country, and you're getting all this money and so forth. Well, Europe came back and said, hey, so just in case you're keeping score, America, you might be one country, but you're a whole bunch of states, and altogether, you're massively rich. We might be several countries, but our countries together are the size of several states, and together we can barely be competitive. And furthermore, Boeing, that company that you have there, they're really good at what they do because of all the government grants during World War II. Boeing used tons and tons and tons of government money to create its technology, to create its manufacturing capability, and to basically get off the ground. So you subsidized the bejesus out of Boeing during World War II. We're just doing the same in a time of peace. The World Trade Organization, which we will study later on in these lectures, they agreed, and Airbus now is a very good, strong competitor. And so when you're looking at aircraft and aircraft engines, you're looking at the US and Boeing and GE, General Electric, but you're also looking at Airbus and Rolls-Royce. They make the engines. So there's competition in the marketplace. This was all because of infant industry, okay? But now with that, I want to ask a question. I want to ask you what you think. If you did the reading, you'll have a little bit of a clue into this. Why would some countries be better positioned to support infant industries than others? So some countries are really, really well positioned to support infant industries and create these comparative advantages and world-class capabilities. Other countries are not well situated. What do I mean by that? What would make a country poorly situated to support infant industries? So let's give that a thought. Okay, let's come back and take a look at this. And by the way, Ash, I apologize. I referred to you as a he earlier on. I have another class here online, broadcast, and I have Ash in that class as well. And that Ash is a he. And by the way, Ashley, which is a unisex name, right? So it's mea culpa. I'm sure it'll take you half the time then to take over the world, as we were suggesting. So Ash actually, everyone, brought up a really good point. She mentioned economic advantage, right? And yeah, she's right. Here's what it comes down to: is and by the way, so awesome comment, contributor, right? Very good. Here's the thing: it's easier for me to subsidize a company or an industry if I'm rich, right? Think about it. So my kids move out at some point or another, and maybe they want to buy a home. Okay. Well, some parents have like this awesome savings account nest egg. So, yes, son or daughter of mine, when you go out on your own, we have $100,000 saved so we can help you get into a home. Or we have this incredible credit rating we can co-sign and you can get a great, interest rate and so forth. Rich, well off, privileged families, or get into the right colleges and universities. Yes, that matters. Well off, privileged families have an advantage over other families that don't have that because of their economic circumstance. So, yes, rich countries like the US or Europe or some other very well established countries, China, big time. They my watch is going nuts on me. They have an economic advantage. Whereas small countries, they don't have the money to support their fledgling infant industries, right? It's like parents growing up in an apartment with their kid. Okay, hey, can you help me buy a home? Are you kidding? I don't even have a home myself yet. All right, very good, very good. Okay, so yeah, Nicole, economics are better in some countries than others. Bingo, right? Absolutely. Um, and um, and then let's see, Shalise, and maybe the way they are more supportive of small businesses, focus more on that than the large companies. Okay, this is really good because yes, um, it depends. Some countries really value entrepreneurialism. And we're going to explore that in depth in this lecture series. We're going to talk about countries that really value the entrepreneur. He's asleep down there. They really, help these fledgling companies. Other countries are not interested in entrepreneurialism, all right? They just want to support the established, entrenched industries. And so, yes, that will affect the way they practice this. Bingo. Daniela, education is well supported in some countries better than others. Yes, absolutely. And so it's one thing to say we can throw money at you and so forth. It's another thing of, do these companies and countries have the knowledge base necessary to pull this off? Excellent, excellent. You get it. So this is one reason why we will see what do we call it? Infant industry practiced. Okay, why we do that. Now another reason we practice trade protectionism, we practice trade protectionism, put up trade barriers, is as an anti-dumping strategy. Okay, so I'm going to explain to you what dumping is, but I've removed the last bullet because the last bullet is, why is this bad? And I'm going to have you answer the why is it bad. So here's the idea. This is what dumping is: selling goods in a foreign market below production cost or below fair market value. Okay, so let me give you an example. Um, I make a certain part. I don't know. I make this part. I make this part right here, lens cap. It costs me 40 cents to make this part, and I sell it for $1. All right, so I make 60 cents in profit. Not bad, right? Yes, Ash, you're right. We're getting there. Now, in another country, it costs my competitor, another competitor, still costs 40 cents to make this part. But then what do? Well, I go off to that country and I sell this part for 30 cents. Okay? So I am losing, instead of me making 60 cents, I am losing 10 cents by selling this in the other country. However, my competitor can't keep up with this because I have deeper pockets, and so they go out of business. So the question is, why is this a problem? I mean, why is that not just cutthroat economics, right? If I have deeper pockets and I can afford to sell something at below cost and you can't afford to sell something below cost, then that's just the way it is, right? Why is this a problem? We'll just stay on this one for a moment. So tell me what you think. All right, let's take, oh my gosh, yes, you guys are so on it. So, by the way, before we even get any further, I'm going to tell you right off, hold on, right here. We've got 10 awesome comments, and I'm going to take us to the top of contributors because I think everybody has contributed. And so we'll never get to 10 because we don't have 10 folks. But I think we've got everybody contributing. And I know we have some real world examples in here, so we'll check those out. However, that does mean that today you're going to send me an email that says, let's see, 10, 24, 10. Just send me an email, 10, 24, 10, and that'll remind me to go ahead and get you the points. All right? Very good. Okay, let's take a look at some of these. So Ash said they do it solely so they can get competition out of the market and then they can raise the price. Bam. That's it. I mean, don't worry, there's more. So the rest of you who have comments, you're totally on. But that's the big one, right? Ash is onto it. Is, okay, I go ahead and I make this part. I make it for 40 cents. I sell it for 30. My competition over in France can't keep up, so they go out of business. Well, now I can sell this product in France for $2 frickin' dollars. Well, where else are they going to go? Their own industry is on the skids and they can't really offer a solution. So in a way, it's kind of like a monopoly, right? That's what dumping is. International dumping is a big problem. It is a big problem, and it is the cause of a lot of international trade disputes. I'll tell you a story here in a moment. Let's see what the rest of you have. Alma says, I know someone who does that on Amazon for a product. When someone new starts to compete, they lower their product or lower than they can then they can make it so that they go out of business. And there I just did it again. You know what I do is, and don't worry, I know I'm still broadcasting, although it freaked me out because I just closed the window. If I don't have the right screen up and I push a button, it goes nuts. And so I need to pull it all back up. The first time this happened, I freaked out because I thought, oh my gosh, did I close it? Did I, kill it off? Well, no, I know I'm still here, and there we are. We're good to go. Okay, so what we have here is a great real world example. Absolutely, right? And this is a regular practice. Now, there's nothing wrong with lowering your prices so you can be more competitive. What becomes an issue is when you're basically going through a war of attrition to get a competitor completely out of the picture. Some ethical issues do come into play there. When it comes to international trade, it's not ethical, it's illegal. Okay, so great example, Alma. Yeah, Yasmin, you're right. Unfair competition, especially since the other company is richer, or they might be subsidized. Hold on to that. Raise their prices right back up, Alma, or even more. It creates, says Nicole, creates unfair market in which can eventually become a monopoly. Yes, you said it before I did. I just didn't see the comment yet, so you nailed it. High quality business, says Daniela, go out because they cannot keep up with the low prices, of the lower quality. Yes. It's an interesting thing how, somebody who creates something of higher quality, of higher worth, but has to pay more, cannot compete with somebody who does lower quality, but the market says they're fine with it. Now, when it comes to dumping, what often happens is a country will subsidize a given industry so that this company, this industry, can then compete in a foreign market at lower prices because they're subsidized by the government. Now, case in point is China and steel. All right. Now, if you were, China and steel is a great example of all these things coming together, but I'll try to nail in on the key point each time. If we were to look at the tariffs that we have on Chinese steel, I think the tariffs, and you're welcome to Google this and kind of tell the rest of us what it might be. Hang on, I'm making sure that we're still going here and so forth. Do me a favor and just chime in real quick and tell me that you can still see and hear me. I just want to be sure that we're on the right track here. Good, thank you, Ash. If you're at a computer, of course you're at a computer, but if you can pull up another screen or something, do me a favor and see what our current trade tariffs are on Chinese steel. It doesn't have to be an exact number. The last I checked, it's around 600%. Thank all of you for letting me know this is still working. 600% tariff is massive. Well, why are we doing 600% tariff? Well, for a few reasons. One of the reasons, though, has to do with dumping. China subsidizes their steel market so that China can sell its steel abroad for less than anybody else. Now, China's not the only player in the steel market, neither is the United States. Korea and Vietnam, they're big players in the steel market. But Chinese government subsidizes their steel industry to such an extent that they can undercut anybody at all. And the U.S. sees this and says, hey, that's not cool, man. You can't be, that's dumping. You're dumping your steel in our country because you're heavily subsidized. We can't compete with that. We're going to report you to the trade organization. And in the meantime, we're going to up the tariffs, right? Okay, excellent. All right, there's other reasons why we might want to practice protectionism. Environmental protection, right? Some countries have significantly less stringent environmental laws, rules, regulations on the book, or even practice them, or enforce them, or any of the above, right? And so the logic is, well, now hold on. Here in the US, and yes, the US does have very, very stringent environmental regulations. Can they be stronger still? Yes. Yes, I think they can be stronger still. But that doesn't change the fact that they are very strong. And that comes with a price tag. And so that influences the cost of our products that we manufacture. Well, now, if another country is not practicing the same level of environmental stewardship, and they're dumping and they're polluting and all that sort of stuff, well, that means that they can sell their product for cheaper because it's less expensive for them to produce. Well, that's not fair, right? We're here trying to protect the environment. You're not, and you are undercutting our industries that are protecting the environment. We can't compete with that. And so we're going to go up and put up trade barriers, either, most often in the type of tariffs and so forth. So it's kind of saying, hey, well, if you're not going to pay for it, pay for environmentalism, at the factory level, you're pay for it at the tax level. Okay. Now, another one is consumer safety. Same argument as environmentalism, exact same argument. The idea is, listen, American companies, we take consumer safety really, really, really seriously. We can all thank Ralph Nader for that. And if you don't know who Ralph Nader is, that means you're younger than me. He was a huge, huge, huge safety advocate back in the day. Actually ran for president quite a few times. And he was really instrumental, as well as many, many, many other people, in making sure that American products were safe. All right, this is why children's pajamas are not flammable, right? And this is why car seats are so intricately engineered to provide for the safety of our kids. Well, that comes at a cost, especially those car seats. Man, oh man, have you ever bought a child car seat? Shalice, maybe you have. Those things are expensive. Oh my gosh, right? So, well, now, if other countries are not, practicing the same level of consumer safety, well, then, first of all, it's cheaper for them. Second is, their products are death traps, so to speak, right? I'll give you an example, and I remember this case. It's actually cited in the reading that I gave you, but I remember when this happened. Mattel was having a lot of products manufactured in China, and China was using this paint, I think it was, some sort of paint that was poisonous as all get out. Well, what does a little kid do with a toy truck? They suck on the toy truck, right? That's what they're made for. And, well, that's not so good. And so, China was sanctioned and, trade barriers and all that sort of stuff. By the way, 999,000 out of whatever the next number is, a million, products out of China are excellent. Okay, excellent. But that wasn't always the case, and we always need to be vigilant. It's these barriers that kind of provide the incentive to these countries to play nice. Okay. And then lastly, national interest. So here's the idea. Okay, we can't be self-sufficient in everything. All right, remember we talked about mercantilism as one of three economic philosophies of globalization. Mercantilism, absolute advantage, and comparative advantage. Comparative advantage was everybody does what they can do most efficiently, which is the best way to go. And then we had absolute advantage, which is everybody does what they do the absolute best, but comparative is actually better. Mercantilism was everybody makes their own stuff. You want to be self-sufficient. You want to sell as much as you possibly can, but you don't want to buy. You don't want to buy, okay? Let's see, by the way, Nicole, come to find out, we are receive it because directly from Germany, we are unable to use it because they do not have the same guidelines. And this is when my daughter had her first baby, and we thought it was an amazing seat for sale online. Okay, yes, thank you, Nicole. That is a great real world example. And I actually remember this. I remember, and this was only a short while ago, wasn't it? Like within the past year or two, where there were these amazing car seats that were like pretty cheap, and Amazon was selling them. And then it come to find out they did not meet American safety standards. And so the question was, who gets punished? Does Amazon get punished, or does the seller who is using Amazon get punished? Okay. So, yeah, that's a big deal. Excellent example. Okay. So, coming back to national interest, okay, we can't make everything. We can't make everything. But you know what? There are some things that you really don't want to be beholden to somebody else for. All right. I'll give you an obvious example. Military technology. All right. When you're a big, huge, powerful country like the US, you don't want to outsource your protection. All right. You want to make your own airplanes. You want to make your own tanks. You want to make your own ships. You want to make your own equipment, because you don't want somebody else having control over producing the equipment you need for your self-defense. Now, as a result, it's really expensive. Have you ever noticed how we always love to talk about how expensive a jet is, or a ship, or all this stuff, and all the money that the government is spending on all this stuff? And isn't that crazy? Well, yes, it is crazy. But part of the reason it's crazy is that we rely on very, very little in terms of foreign parts, foreign labor, foreign equipment, which means we have to make it all here, which means we have no comparative advantage. And in some cases, we don't even have absolute advantage. We're just making it ourselves because it's in our national interest. Now, same sort of thing when it comes to like oil, and by the way, steel, which is all comes together with China and steel, right? But let's look at oil. I was around during the oil crisis, the energy crisis during the 1970s. None of you were, but during the 70s, we relied on foreign oil to an apocalyptic degree. Okay. We are the world's largest, richest, most productive nation, and we need a lot of power. We need a lot of energy to be large, productive, and rich. Which means that when OPEC said, I don't think we're going to sell you oil anymore, and if we do, we're going to sell it really expensive, it shut our nation down. It was crazy. It was crazy. Okay. Well, the United States has many times said, never again, never again, never again. But in this case, we actually did some things. Today, when it comes to energy production, we actually are like the world's second largest producer of oil, with number one being Saudi Arabia. Don't quote me on that statistic, but that was the statistic I saw not too long ago. So we are the number two producer of oil. We can produce all the energy we need for the United States. So why do we buy oil? We still do buy oil. Well, there's a few reasons we buy oil. Just because we can produce it doesn't mean that it is cost efficient for us to produce it. And it could be very well be that buying oil from Saudi Arabia and from other countries and so forth makes better economic sense. So yes, we can do it ourselves, which is totally cool, but maybe it's expensive, so we'll just buy it from somewhere else. Furthermore, it really helps to solidify agreements and alliances and markets and friendships, and we need that, especially in the Middle East. And then finally, why use up all our own reserves when we can use up somebody else's reserves first? All right. So imagine if you had a great big bank account of $1 million. Why would you borrow money? Well, because if it's cheap, if you're making more interest on your $1 million than you would pay in interest to somebody else to borrow it, you would absolutely borrow. And furthermore, you're not depleting your own resources. So we actually have really increased our power production, energy production here in the US, but we do continue to buy, sell, and trade with other countries. Shalise, except when you're mad at us and they go, yeah, $5 a gallon. Yeah. But right now that's not happening because OPEC is having squabbles, right? So Saudi Arabia and Russia, which both belong to OPEC, are not talking to each other. Iran's doing kind of its own thing. They're part of OPEC. So OPEC is kind of a hot mess right now, which is why our energy prices are so low. Okay. Well, that and the pandemic, just this little thing called a pandemic. Okay. So there you go, folks. That's it. You now have a pretty good comprehensive understanding of what trade barriers are, what this protectionism implies from our last lecture. And today we've talked about, well, why would we do it? If protectionism is so bad, and it is, why would we do it? Well, there are, in fact, some legitimate reasons why you may want to practice protectionism in very specific strategic instances, but not willy-nilly, okay? And that's really where the devil is, right, in terms of details. So, fantastic, everyone. And you got 2 10s, so awesome. Awesome. That's great. Fantastic participation. Thank you so much. Regular spiel. This wraps up our lecture. I'm going to stick around in the comments section for a little bit to see if there are any questions, comments, any clarification. By the way, all this stuff on protectionism, yes, you want to include this in your papers. You want to understand what protectionist practices does the country where you want to do business, what protectionist practices do they put in place, what agreements are in place, what the history has been, things like that. Shalise asks, do we need to send, no, for the other 10, no. I can remember at least, Shalise, that we got 10 twice. I can remember that much. I just can't always remember who was with us today. So we're good there. So yeah, be sure to include it in the paper, okay? All right, everyone. Thank you very much. A great session today. Have an even better weekend, and we'll talk to you next week. Have a good one.